God's chosen ones, 99% of the chosen ignore this final call from God. Act before it's gone. Is it possible that God has been trying to reach you for years and you've been missing his signals? What if this very moment is your final divine appointment before the gates of opportunity close forever? Beloved soul, this is not a video you're watching. This is a divine interruption orchestrated by heaven itself. I need you to pause everything right now and truly hear me. God has shifted the algorithms of the universe to place this message before your eyes at precisely this moment. You see, 99% of God's chosen ones will scroll past this final call, never realizing what they've lost. But something inside you already knows, doesn't it? That unexplainable stirring in your spirit right now, that's not emotion, that's recognition. If your spirit already feels the weight of this sacred moment, comment 999 below, not as a number, but as a divine declaration that you refuse to be among those who miss heaven's final invitation. What if I told you that the struggles you've endured, the closed doors, the unanswered prayers, the nights spent crying out, "Why, God?" were never punishment. They were preparation. Every tear, every setback, every disappointment was building the vessel that could carry the glory God intended for you from the beginning of time. Jeremiah 1-5 declares, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." Can you feel the gravity of those words settling into your soul? You weren't just born. You were commissioned. But here's the shocking truth many refuse to face. Divine windows don't stay open indefinitely. Think of Noah and the ark. The door wasn't sealed after the rain began. It closed before the first drop fell. Those standing outside never imagined that their final chance had already passed. Is the door of your destiny closing even now? What if missing this message isn't just delay? It's destruction of the very purpose you were created to fulfill? Before we go deeper into this divine revelation, I want to pause and extend my heartfelt gratitude to every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead. The divine countdown has already begun. Heaven is watching to see if you'll recognize this moment for what it truly is, your final invitation to step into the calling God reserved for you before time began. Will you be among the 1% who answers, or will you be left wondering why your breakthrough never came? Have you ever collapsed to your knees in the darkest hours of night, wondering why your burden seems heavier than everyone else's? Has your heart ever cried out, "Lord, why must I carry so much when others seem to walk freely?" Do you sometimes feel that God has forgotten you while blessing those who deserve it less? These aren't just questions. They're the midnight prayers of your soul that you've been too afraid to speak aloud. For decades now, I've walked alongside thousands of believers just like you, seniors who've faithfully served, given, sacrificed, only to wonder if it all meant anything in God's eyes. The weight you've been carrying, the financial struggles, the health battles, the family heartbreaks, the dreams that never materialized, none of it was random. Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you, because this revelation might be the key that unlocks everything you've been praying for. The crushing weight on your shoulders was never punishment. It was preparation. Your suffering was never abandonment. It was an appointment with destiny that God set before time began. Look at Joseph in Genesis. Before he ever stood in Pharaoh's palace, he was thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned and forgotten. For 13 agonizing years, Joseph carried a weight that would have broken most men. But God wasn't punishing Joseph. He was positioning him. "You intended to harm me," Joseph later told his brothers, "but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Genesis 50-20. Your story follows the same divine pattern. The rejection that broke your heart was protecting you from a path that would have destroyed your purpose. The financial setback that kept you awake at night was redirecting you to the provision God had already prepared. The illness that tested your faith was building spiritual muscles for the mission still ahead. You weren't abandoned in the desert, beloved. You were hidden there, being forged like steel in fire, into a sword that the enemy would come to fear. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before God called him from the burning bush. 40 years, can you imagine? A prince of Egypt reduced to watching sheep in the middle of nowhere. But Moses wasn't overlooked. He was being prepared for the moment when an entire nation would follow him to freedom. And what about Esther, an orphan girl who became queen? Do you think it was coincidence that placed her in the palace for such a time as this? No, her pain was purposeful. Her struggle was strategic. Her positioning was prophetic. This is who you are, child of God. Your burden has been building your capacity to carry blessing. Many of you watching right now are in your 60s, 70s, even 80s, and the enemy wants you to believe your time has passed, that you've been sidelined, overlooked, put out to pasture while God uses younger vessels. What a devastating lie. Some fruit can only be harvested in its proper season. Some wine only reaches its fullness after decades of waiting. Psalm 92:14 declares, "They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green." This is God's promise to you. Your most significant season isn't behind you. It's unfolding right now. I feel the Holy Spirit saying to someone watching, the delay wasn't denial, it was divine timing. The weight you've carried wasn't meant to crush you. It was designed to crown you. You aren't just surviving your struggles, you're being shaped by them. The pressure wasn't punishment, it was preparation for promotion. This is why 99% miss God's call. They mistake preparation for punishment. They interpret God's positioning as his absence. They surrender their swords right before the battle they were born to win. But not you, not anymore, not after today. You were never overlooked. You were preserved, protected, set apart. Like a masterpiece being perfected in the artist's workshop. Hidden from view until the precise moment of unveiling. Isaiah 49:2 reminds us, "He made my mouth like a sharpened sword. In the shadow of his hand he hid me. He made me into a polished arrow and concealed me in his quiver." Do you understand what this means? Your hiddenness wasn't rejection, it was protection. Your struggles weren't random, they were refining. Your delay wasn't God's denial, it was your development. And now, the master artist is ready to display his work. The sword is being unsheathed. The arrow is being positioned in the bow. The question is, will you recognize this moment for what it truly is? Will you step into the calling that all your suffering has been preparing you for? Or will you be among the 99% who turn away right at the threshold of their divine purpose? Because what comes next, beloved, is the revelation of why this call is coming to you now, at this precise moment in history, and why answering it will change not just your destiny, but the destiny of generations to come. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to walk in divine favor while others struggle their entire lives? What if I told you that the difference isn't God's selection, but human recognition? Could it be that you've been chosen all along, but never stepped into the calling that's been waiting for you? The most tragic story in heaven's archives isn't about those who were never chosen. It's about those who were divinely selected, but never realized it. They lived and died, never stepping into the sacred purpose that God ordained for them before time began. This is the heartbreaking reality of the 99% who walk through life, never recognizing the divine fingerprints all over their journey. They mistake divine appointments for coincidences, heavenly whispers for random thoughts, and spiritual nudges for emotional impulses. Proverbs 29:18 warns us with crystal clarity, "Where there is no vision, the people perish," not because God abandons them, but because they fail to see what's been there all along. Think about Moses, wandering in the wilderness for 40 years before a burning bush finally caught his attention. God had been calling him since birth, but it took 4 decades for Moses to recognize his divine selection. How many more years would you be willing to wander before acknowledging your burning bush moment? Right now, at this very second, you are standing at your own spiritual crossroads. The fact that you're still watching, that something in your spirit won't let you click away, is heaven's confirmation. You are among the 1% who are awakening to their divine purpose. But listen carefully, because this next truth might shake you to your core. Recognizing your calling is not the same as answering it. Even after identifying the divine invitation, 99% of people will hesitate, procrastinate, and ultimately forfeit their heavenly assignment. In Matthew 22:14, Jesus delivered this sobering reality. "For many are called, but few are chosen." The original Greek text reveals something profound. The word chosen doesn't mean those God selected. It means those who actively responded to the selection. God has called you, but will you choose to answer? I've counseled thousands of seniors across this great nation who reached their golden years, only to be haunted by the same agonizing question, what if? What if I had stepped out in faith? What if I had trusted God's leading? What if I hadn't waited until it was too late? Don't let that be your story. At 60, 70, even 90 years old, it's not too late to answer heaven's call. Your age isn't a disqualification, it's a qualification. The wisdom you've gained, the trials you've endured, the patience you've developed, all of it has been preparation for such a time as this. Remember Sarah, who gave birth to the promised child at 90 years old. Remember Moses, who led the Exodus at 80. Remember Anna, who prophesied about Jesus at over 100 years of age. God has always used the elderly to fulfill his most profound purposes. Before continuing this divine revelation, I want to express my deepest gratitude to everyone who has supported this ministry through Super Thanks. Your generosity doesn't just keep these messages flowing, it ensures that other chosen ones, who might otherwise miss their divine appointment, will hear heaven's trumpet call. Whether you give or not, your presence here matters profoundly, and I thank God for connecting our spiritual journeys. Most people hear God's voice as a distant whisper, easily drowned out by the noise of everyday life. But what if that whisper is actually heaven's trumpet blaring for you? What if that gentle nudge is actually God's hand trying to push you through the narrow gate before it closes forever? In Revelation 3:20, Jesus says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock." Notice, he doesn't say he breaks down the door. He doesn't force his way in. He waits for you to recognize his knock and open the door. The 99% hear the knock, but convince themselves it's just the wind. They feel the stirring, but dismiss it as indigestion. They sense the calling, but talk themselves out of responding. Will you join that tragic majority, or will you be among the courageous 1% who recognize their divine selection and answer heaven's final call? This is not about feeling special. This is about being obedient. This is not about status. It's about service. This is not about pride. It's about purpose. The clock is ticking. The sand is falling through the hourglass. What was once a gentle invitation is now an urgent summons. In Esther 4:14, Mordecai delivered this chilling warning. If you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise from another place, but you and your Father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this. If you don't act today, you will become part of the 99%. Your divine assignment will be given to someone else. The blessing reserved for you will be redirected. The impact you were meant to have will never materialize. But there's still time to change your story. There's still time to step into your divine selection. There's still time to answer heaven's final call. The question is no longer, are you chosen? The question now is, will you choose to answer? Have you ever walked into a room and felt every eye turn toward you? That inexplicable moment when conversations hush, when strangers stare, when something in the atmosphere shifts and you can't explain why. That's not coincidence, beloved. That's your marking. In the sacred depths of Jeremiah 1-5, God declares, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." Let those words sink into your spirit. Not after you proved yourself worthy, not when you reached a certain age, but before your first heartbeat, before your lungs drew breath. God had already placed his divine fingerprint upon your soul. You were never just another face in the crowd. You were marked. Think back to your childhood. Weren't you always somehow different? Can you recall how even as a little one you seemed to understand things that bewildered your peers? How you could sense atmospheres, feel emotions that weren't spoken, see beyond what others could see? That was your marking, already manifesting. But with that marking came a price, didn't it? The attacks began so early, you probably can't even remember when they started. The whispers behind your back, the inexplicable rejection, the sense that others were uncomfortable around you, not because of anything you did, but because of who you are. The enemy recognized your marking long before you did. Satan doesn't waste ammunition on the unmarked. He reserves his heaviest artillery for those who carry divine potential. Consider Joseph, with his coat of many colors. His own brothers despised him, not primarily for his father's favoritism, but because they sensed something different about him, something that made them uneasy. Even before his dreams, Joseph was marked. And darkness always attacks what it cannot understand. Look at your hands right now. These hands, these very fingertips, were designed with purpose before the foundation of the world. The unique swirls of your fingerprints aren't just for identification. They're the signature of your Creator, who crafted you with intention, who encoded your destiny into your very DNA. But here's where the tragedy unfolds. For far too many marked souls, after years of misunderstanding, after decades of attacks, after a lifetime of feeling like you don't belong, many of God's chosen ones begin to hide their marking. They dim their light, they silence their voice, they conform to a world that was never meant to define them. And in that moment of surrender, something sacred begins to die. Is that you, beloved? Have you buried your marking beneath layers of compromise, beneath wounds inflicted by those who feared what they couldn't comprehend? Have you tried to be normal when God designed you to be extraordinary? Psalm 139:14 proclaims, "I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well." Do you know that? Can you feel that truth in your bones? Or has the world's rejection caused you to question your divine design? Let me speak something over you right now that may shock you. The very things that have made you feel like an outsider are the exact qualities that heaven celebrates. Your sensitivity, your depth, your ability to see what others miss. These aren't flaws to be corrected, they're gifts to be activated. In the courts of heaven, there is no debate about your value, no committee questioning your worth, no discussion about whether you belong. You were marked, you were chosen, you were appointed, before time began. And now, at this precise moment in history, God is calling forth his marked ones, those who carry his fingerprint, those who've been misunderstood, those who've been attacked from their youth. Not because they did anything wrong, but because darkness recognized what they carried. Moses was marked, and Pharaoh tried to kill him as a baby. Jesus was marked, and Herod slaughtered innocent children trying to destroy him. You've been marked, and the attacks on your life were never random. They were strategic attempts to prevent you from stepping into the very purpose we're discussing right now. But the enemy miscalculated. What was meant to destroy you has only prepared you. The rejection that was supposed to crush you has only refined you. The isolation that was designed to break you has positioned you to hear heaven's frequency with crystal clarity. Can you feel that resonance in your spirit right now? That vibration of truth that's causing your soul to tremble? That's recognition. Your spirit recognizing what your mind has questioned for too long. If you feel this truth awakening within you, if you know beyond knowing that you were marked before you were born, I need you to make a declaration right now. Comment, "I receive my marking" below. Not just as words on a screen, but as a sacred covenant with your Creator, an acknowledgement of what heaven has always known about you. The hour is late, beloved. The divine window is closing. 99% of the marked ones will miss this final call because they've grown too comfortable with their compromise, too familiar with their limitations, too accustomed to denying what heaven placed within them. But you who can still feel that marking beneath the scar tissue of disappointment, you who still catch glimpses of your true identity in rare, unguarded moments, you stand at the threshold of awakening. What if everything you've endured was preparation for this very moment? What if your marking is about to become your message to a world desperately in need of authentic light? Have you ever missed a call that could have changed your entire life? A job offer, a reconnection with someone you loved, an opportunity that never returned. Beloved, what I'm about to share may shake you to your core, but it comes wrapped in the most profound love imaginable. This final call from heaven isn't God's ultimatum, it's his heartbreak, watching you sleep through your divine appointment. You see, in Matthew 22:14, Jesus said, "Many are called, but few are chosen." But what breaks the Father's heart is this truth: even among the chosen, 99% will miss their final call, not because God withdraws his invitation, but because they fail to recognize the urgency of the moment. Think of it like this. Your grandchild calls you again and again, 6 times, 7 times, but you're busy watching television or napping in your favorite chair. On the 8th call, they give up. Later, you discover they were at the hospital, needing you in their darkest hour. How would that knowledge settle in your spirit? The weight of knowing they needed you, and you were too distracted to answer? This is where many of you stand with God right now. He's been calling, knocking, arranging divine appointments. But the line keeps ringing as you focus on everything but his voice. In Revelation 3:20, Jesus says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in." But what happens when, after years of knocking, the footsteps begin to fade away? What if God has been calling you, but this is the final ring before he moves to the next one? I know that thought sends a chill down your spine. It should. But remember, this warning comes from perfect love, not punishment. A father who sees his child walking toward danger doesn't whisper, he shouts. Some of you have spent decades in church, read your Bible cover to cover, prayed faithful prayers. But there's a vast difference between religious activity and divine alignment. You can attend every Sunday service for 50 years and still miss what God specifically created you to accomplish. Like Samuel in the temple, who heard God's voice but didn't recognize it until Eli helped him respond correctly. How many times has God spoken your assignment while you dismissed it as just a passing thought or random idea? At your age, with your wisdom, your experience, you carry something this world desperately needs. The kingdom assignment on your life hasn't expired because you've reached retirement age. In fact, for many of you, your most significant impact is meant to begin now. Moses was 80 years old when he encountered the burning bush. Abraham was nearly 100 when he became the father of nations. Anna, the prophetess, served God into her 80s and became the first evangelist to proclaim the Messiah had come. Your gray hair isn't a signal to step back. It's your crown of authority to step forward with greater boldness. I want to thank those of you who've supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity isn't just financial, it's spiritual warfare. You're ensuring these divine wake-up calls reach others who stand at the same crossroads you do. Whether you give or not, know that your presence here matters deeply, and God sees your hunger for His truth. Can I speak something prophetic over you? The reason this message found you today is because heaven has been tracking your journey. The struggles you've endured, the prayers that seemed unanswered, the times you wondered if God had forgotten you, they were all preparation for such a time as this. Isaiah 55:6 urges us, "Seek the Lord while He may be found. Call on Him while He is near." Those words, "while He may be found," should awaken something urgent in your spirit. There are seasons in our lives when God draws especially near, when the veil between heaven and earth grows thin, when one step of obedience can unlock decades of destiny. This is your moment. The final call isn't God's threat to abandon you, it's His passionate plea to awaken you before the opportunity passes. Why would God move on? It's not that His love diminishes, it's that His kingdom advances. He's looking for those who will respond with immediate obedience, not delayed consideration. Remember the rich young ruler? Jesus invited him to a life of extraordinary purpose, but he walked away sorrowful, clinging to what he could see, rather than embracing what he could become. Scripture never tells us if he got another invitation. The most dangerous prayer you can pray right now is, "Later, God," because later may never come. So I ask you, with all the tenderness and urgency of heaven, will you recognize this moment for what it truly is? Will you answer while the line is still ringing, or will you be among the 99% who one day realize, too late, what they missed when God called? The choice before you isn't just about today, it ripples into eternity, and heaven is waiting with bated breath for your answer. Have you ever watched as the last train pulled away from the station, leaving you behind? Or felt that sinking feeling when an opportunity slipped through your fingers because you hesitated too long? My dear chosen one, what I'm about to tell you is far more consequential than any missed train or earthly opportunity. Right now, at this very moment, a divine doorway stands open before you. Not a physical door, but a spiritual portal of destiny that leads directly to the abundance, the healing, the restoration that God has reserved for you since before you drew your first breath. Look carefully at Revelation 3-8, where Christ Himself declares, "I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut." Do you hear that promise? No human can close it, no demon can seal it, no circumstance can block it. But here's the sobering truth that many refuse to face. While no one else can shut this door, God Himself will not keep it open indefinitely. Remember Noah, faithful servant of the Lord, who spent 120 years building an ark, warning of judgment to come. For over a century, people mocked him, dismissed him, called him a fool. Every hammer stroke, every wooden beam was a sermon they ignored. And then, that fateful day arrived. Genesis 7:16 tells us, "Those that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in." Notice those final 5 words. The Lord shut him in. Not Noah, not his sons, not the crowd outside. God himself sealed the door. And when God shuts a door, no amount of pounding, no volume of tears, no intensity of regret can pry it open again. Can you picture those same mockers, frantically beating against the ark's walls as the waters began to rise? Can you hear their desperate pleas, their sudden conversion, their too-late recognition that Noah had been right all along? I can almost see their hands clawing at the sealed entrance as the floodwaters rose to their waists, then their shoulders, then their necks. The very salvation they had ridiculed was now forever beyond their reach. Not because God didn't love them, but because they ignored their divine moment of decision. This isn't just ancient history, my dear friend. This is happening right now, in your life. The door of divine opportunity stands open, but hesitant hands will soon find themselves trapped on the wrong side of destiny's threshold. Jesus warned about this precise moment in Matthew 25, in the parable of the 10 virgins. 5 were wise, prepared with oil in their lamps. 5 were foolish, procrastinating until it was too late. When the midnight cry came, the foolish rushed to prepare, only to return and find the door shut. Their heartbreaking plea still echoes through the centuries. "Lord, Lord, open to us." But the devastating response came, "Truly, I tell you, I don't know you." What a terrifying thought, to hear those words from the Savior's lips, "I don't know you." Not because he never wanted to know you, but because you waited too long to truly know him. My aging bones have walked with the Lord for over 5 decades now, and I've seen this pattern repeated in countless lives. Those who seize their divine moment experience breakthrough beyond imagination. Those who hesitate, who say, "Tomorrow," who put God's calling on hold, wake up one day to find the opportunity vanished like morning mist under the summer sun. Isaiah 55:6 urges us, "Seek the Lord while he may be found, call on him while he is near." Did you catch that crucial phrase? While he may be found. While he is near. These divine windows are not permanent fixtures in the landscape of your life. I feel compelled by the Holy Spirit to tell you, with trembling urgency, that for many watching this message, this is your final invitation. The harvest is ripening in the fields of your destiny, but he who hesitates now won't be here for the gathering. Before we continue, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to everyone who has supported this ministry through Super Thanks. Your generosity isn't just sustaining a channel, it's fueling a spiritual awakening across the nation. Whether you can give or simply share this message, know that you're valued beyond measure. If this word is stirring your spirit, consider joining those who are making these divine appointments possible for others. I see it so clearly. The celestial hourglass tipping, its final grains slipping through. Heaven's clock is ticking, not to pressure you, but because the Father loves you too much to let you miss what he has prepared. Think of Esther, who was told by Mordecai, "Who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" Her decision to act saved an entire nation. Your decision today could determine the salvation of your family for generations. Will you be like Noah, who stepped through the door of obedience, or like those who pounded on the sealed ark, too late to enter? Right now, wherever you are, I want you to make a declaration of spiritual intent. Type "Yes, Lord" in the comments below. Not just as words on a screen, but as a covenant between your soul and your Creator. Let heaven record your response. Let the angels rejoice. Let the enemy tremble, as you declare that you will not miss this door again. The Father's hand is extended toward you. Will you take it? Or will you be counted among the 99% who heard the call but never stepped through? Beloved of God, what I'm about to reveal will shake the very foundation of how you understand your life struggles. This isn't just another message. This is spiritual intelligence from the front lines of a war most Christians never fully comprehend. Do you truly understand what's happening in the unseen realm around you right now? Do you grasp why your prayers seem to hit a brass ceiling? Why your breakthrough feels perpetually almost there, but never materializes? The battle for your destiny isn't fought in church pews or conference rooms. It's waged in the spiritual atmosphere hovering over your life, where demonic forces have launched strategic campaigns against God's chosen ones. Ephesians 6:12 declares, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." That depression that's been crushing you for months, that's not just chemical imbalance. Those persistent doubts that whisper, "God has forgotten you," that's not your imagination. The unexplainable delays to your God-given promises, that's not divine timing. These are weaponized spiritual attacks, precisely calculated to derail your divine appointment. Let me speak plainly. Because your soul's destiny hangs in the balance, delay is not delay. It is demonic distraction in disguise. The enemy of your soul isn't trying to make you sad. He's executing a strategic plan to neutralize your spiritual effectiveness before you even realize what's happening. In 1 Samuel 30, David returned to Ziklag to find everything destroyed, his family taken captive. Scripture says, David was greatly distressed. But what happened next reveals everything. David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. Within 24 hours, he recovered everything the enemy had stolen. Ask yourself this question, and let it pierce your heart. What if your constant waiting on God isn't patience at all, but a spiritual sedative keeping you passive while your destiny is being systematically dismantled? I've counseled thousands of seniors just like you across this nation, from New York to Los Angeles, who thought their spiritual confusion was just part of life's journey, until they recognized the warfare, and everything changed. Martha from Pennsylvania, 73 years old, waited 14 years for her prodigal son to return to faith. After understanding this principle, she stopped waiting and started waging spiritual warfare. Her son called her within 72 hours, asking about attending church. The enemy studies your patterns, your weaknesses, your tendencies. He's observed how easily you accept postponement, how quickly you rationalize divine delays, how willingly you surrender to God's timing without questioning if it's actually God's voice you're hearing. 1 Peter 5-8 warns us, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy the devil prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour." Look around your life right now. Count the unfinished assignments, the abandoned dreams, the prophetic words that never materialized, the ministry that never launched, the book never written, the legacy not yet established. This isn't about missed opportunities. This is about strategic spiritual assassination of your God-ordained purpose. At your age, with decades of wisdom and experience, you should be operating in maximum spiritual effectiveness. Instead, many of you are settling for spiritual retirement, convinced your most impactful days are behind you. That thought wasn't born in your mind. It was planted there. Remember Moses, who began his greatest work at 80. Remember Caleb, who at 85 declared, "I am as strong now as I was when Moses sent me. My strength now is as my strength was then." Remember Anna, who after decades of waiting was present for the revelation of the Messiah, precisely because she refused to accept delay as her destiny. I'm speaking to someone right now who's been feeling the weight of heaven's call, but you've allowed the enemy's tactics to convince you it's too late. Hear me clearly. This is the moment heaven has been waiting for. This is the divine appointment. This is the final call before the door closes. Daniel 7:22 proclaims, "Until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom." Your time to possess what God has promised is now. Before we continue, I want to thank those supporting this ministry through Super Thanks. Your generosity isn't just financial support, it's spiritual partnership in bringing divine awakening to those who've been spiritually sedated. Whether you give or not, know that your presence here matters profoundly. The enemy's greatest triumph isn't getting Christians to sin. It's getting God's chosen ones to accept spiritual neutralization under the guise of waiting. What if everything you've been waiting for has actually been waiting for you to recognize the warfare and rise up in spiritual authority? The question isn't whether spiritual forces are aligned against you. The question is, will you finally recognize what's truly at stake and step into the divine authority heaven has reserved for the 1% who answer this final call? The warfare is real, the weapons are formed, but greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. The battle lines are drawn. Which side of history will you stand on? Have you ever looked at your life and wondered why everything seems harder for you than for others? Those endless nights, staring at the ceiling, asking God, "Why me? Why must I carry this burden?" I understand that pain, beloved. I've walked through those valleys too. For decades, you've carried the weight of rejection, feeling like somehow you were cursed. Those whispers in your mind telling you that God must be punishing you, or worse, that He's forgotten you completely. The diagnosis that shattered your world, the children who don't call anymore, the retirement savings that vanished, the spouse who walked away. But what if I told you that what looks like a curse was actually God's fingerprint on your life all along? Think about Joseph for a moment, betrayed by his own blood, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, abandoned in prison. For 13 long years, it looked like Joseph was under a curse. But Genesis 50-20 reveals the astonishing truth. Looking his betrayers in the eye, Joseph declared, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Joseph wasn't cursed. He was chosen. Chosen to preserve a nation, chosen to save his family, chosen to be positioned for greatness through the very pit that should have destroyed him. Your suffering is not random, dear one. Your pain has purpose. When David was anointed to be king, did he go straight to the palace? No. He went back to the wilderness, back to the sheep, back to fighting lions and bears in obscurity. For years, it looked like Samuel had made a mistake, but God wasn't punishing David. He was preparing him. Every giant you've faced, every Goliath that's mocked you, was building strength in you that could never have come through comfort. Do you think it was easy for Ruth? A widow, a foreigner, gathering leftover grain just to survive. But her season of lack positioned her to meet Boaz. Her story of loss became a legacy of redemption that placed her in the lineage of Jesus Christ himself. I need you to hear me clearly right now. Your setbacks, your heartbreaks, your failures, they weren't meant to destroy you. They were divinely orchestrated to develop something in you that success never could. Romans 8:28 promises, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." Did you catch that? All things. Not just the beautiful things, not just the blessings, but the betrayals, the bankruptcies, the breakdowns. Look at your hands for a moment. Those wrinkles tell a story. Each line, each mark, each scar testifies to your resilience. While others crumbled under half your burden, you're still standing. That's not coincidence, beloved. That's calling. Before I continue this revelation, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to every one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity isn't just appreciated, it's sacred seed sown into fertile ground. You're not simply donating, you're partnering with heaven to reach those who need this truth desperately. Whether you give or not, please know that your presence here, your faith, your attention, it matters more than you know. Let me ask you something that might shake you to your core. What if God allowed certain doors to close precisely because they weren't big enough for what He designed you to carry? What if those relationships ended because they would have limited the greatness God placed inside you? Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before the burning bush. 40 years thinking he had failed, that his chance was over, that his mistakes had disqualified him. But God wasn't punishing Moses. He was positioning him. At 80 years old, when the world said he was finished, God said he was just getting started. It's the same with you, beloved. Your age isn't your expiration date, it's your qualification. Every year, every trial, every tear has been preparing you for such a time as this. The enemy wants you to believe that you missed your chance, that it's too late, that you're too broken, too old, too damaged. But those are lies from the pit of hell. You were never cursed. You were chosen to rise. Say that out loud right now. Declare it over your life. I was never cursed. I was chosen to rise. Type it in the comments below. I was never cursed. I was chosen to rise. Let heaven hear your declaration. Let the enemy know you've awakened to the truth. Let your spirit align with divine purpose. The very things that should have destroyed you will become your testimony. The rejection that should have defined you will fuel your destiny. The pain that should have ended you will empower you. Because you are not just anyone, you are God's chosen vessel, appointed before time began, preserved through every storm, sustained through every battle, for this very moment. And now, the question that remains is this: will you finally embrace the sacred purpose behind your suffering? Will you recognize that what looked like abandonment was actually divine preparation? Because the time has come, chosen one, the hour of your rising is here. Right now, in this exact moment, something extraordinary is unfolding in the spiritual realm. Can you sense it? That weight, that heaviness in the atmosphere isn't just emotion. It's a divine transfer: wealth, wisdom, anointing, power, healing. It's all being released from the storehouses of heaven. But beloved, this isn't for everyone. This is for the ready. In Numbers 13, God brought His chosen people to the very edge of their promised land. They could see it. They could smell it. They were close enough to touch it. But do you know what happened next? 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, while an entire generation missed their divine inheritance. Why? Because they stood at the threshold of blessing and chose fear over faith. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, they said, and we looked the same to them. Numbers 13:33. Their disbelief, their inaction, cost them everything God had prepared. I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer with brutal honesty. How many times has God placed promise right before you and you've walked away? How many divine appointments have you missed because you were too afraid to step forward? How many blessings have passed you by because you couldn't recognize the moment of your visitation? Some of you watching right now are literally one decision away from the breakthrough you've been praying for. One step from the healing, one choice from the restoration, one moment from the abundance. But just like the Israelites, you're standing at the edge, paralyzed by what your natural eyes can see. Listen to me very carefully. In Hebrews 4:2, it says, "For we also have had the good news proclaimed to us, just as they did, but the message they heard was of no value to them, because they did not share the faith of those who obeyed." Did you catch that? The message had no value to them. Not because the message wasn't powerful, but because they refused to combine it with faith. God is separating his people right now into two distinct groups, those who hear and act, and those who hear and hesitate. Which side will you be on? When your grandchildren ask, "Where were you when God was pouring out his final blessings?" What will you tell them? That you were too busy, too doubtful, too comfortable in your familiar wilderness? Think about Ruth, who left everything familiar to follow Naomi into an unknown future. "Where you go, I will go," she declared. And because of that one decision, that one step of faith, she entered into a bloodline that would eventually bring forth the Messiah himself. One woman's yes changed history. What if your yes right now is the key that unlocks generational blessing? What if your obedience in this moment is what God has been waiting for to release healing to your family line? What if your action today shifts the eternal destiny of souls you haven't even met yet? There's an acceleration happening in the spirit. Can you feel it? Time is compressing. What once took years, God is now doing in moments. What once required decades, heaven is accomplishing in days. But this acceleration isn't automatic. It's for those who position themselves to receive. Before we go further, I want to thank every one of you who has supported this ministry through Super Thanks. Your generosity isn't just financial, it's spiritual. You're partnering with heaven to ensure this message reaches every chosen one who needs to hear it. Whether you give or not, know that you are deeply valued, deeply loved, and I'm grateful for your presence here. Malachi 3:10 says, "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it." God is literally challenging you to test his faithfulness. I feel a holy urgency to tell you there is a divine window closing. Just as in Noah's day, when the door of the ark was sealed before the first raindrop fell, God is sealing certain opportunities now. Those who hesitate, who procrastinate, who say tomorrow instead of today, will find themselves on the wrong side of a closed door. In Matthew 25, Jesus tells the parable of the 10 virgins waiting for the bridegroom. 5 were ready, 5 were not. When the moment came, the unprepared found themselves locked out, hearing those devastating words, "Truly I tell you, I don't know you." The spiritual transfer is happening now, but it requires your active participation. It demands your yes. It necessitates your movement. Revelation without response leads to regret. Knowledge without action leads to judgment. So I ask you this, when God looks at you right now, does he see someone ready to receive? Or does he see someone who will be telling stories of what might have been? Because the next few moments will determine whether you enter into everything heaven has prepared for you, or whether you join the 99% who heard the call, but failed to answer. The transfer has begun. Are you positioned to receive it? Beloved, chosen one, the hour of decision has arrived. The moments we've walked through together, from your pain to your divine selection, from your sacred marking to this final opportunity, have all been pointing to this critical threshold in time. This is not just another teaching. This is your divine appointment with destiny. Look around you, at a world spiraling into darkness. The prophecies foretold in Matthew 24 are unfolding before our very eyes. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. Are you seeing it now? The signs are everywhere. Yet 99% of God's chosen remain spiritually asleep, caught in the slumber of distraction and compromise. But you were made for such a time as this. Remember the story of Esther, who stood at the crossroads of history. When her people faced annihilation, her uncle Mordecai spoke words that echo through the centuries to your spirit today. Who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Esther 4:14. That same divine question now hangs in the air over your life. If not you, then who? If not now, then when? Every tear you've shed, every night you've cried out, "Why me, Lord?" Every closed door and disappointment wasn't punishment, it was preparation. God wasn't breaking you, He was building you. While others were seeking comfort, you were being forged in the fires of adversity to emerge as a vessel strong enough to carry divine purpose in these last days. This isn't about religion, this is about awakening. This isn't about church attendance, this is about your eternal assignment. Do you remember the dream that God planted in your heart years ago? That vision that wouldn't let you go? The calling that has haunted you through decades of life? It wasn't your imagination, it was heaven's blueprint, waiting for this precise moment to activate. Revelation 3:8 declares, "I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut." Do you hear that? No human can close what God has opened for you. No circumstance, no age, no limitation can prevent what heaven has ordained. But you must walk through it before it closes. The pain you've endured was your preparation. The mark you carry is your mandate. The awakening you feel right now is your activation, and the door before you is your destiny. You've been chosen to be a leader of light in these end times. Not tomorrow, not next year, right now. In this generation, where darkness seems to be winning, God is raising up a remnant, the 1% who hear and answer. Will you be counted among them? In Joel 2:28, God promised, "I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your old men will dream dreams, your young men will see visions." This is that hour. The very fact that these words are stirring something ancient in your spirit is confirmation that you are among the chosen. But here's the sobering truth that many refuse to face. Joshua 24:15 commands, "Choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve." This day, not tomorrow, not when you feel more ready. This very moment is your divine crossroads. For too long you've stood on the sidelines, watching others fulfill their purpose, wondering when your time would come. That wondering ends today. The waiting is over. The final call has sounded. I need you to understand something profound. You were not placed on this earth just to survive. You were positioned here to thrive, to lead, to be a beacon in the gathering storm. The world doesn't need another silent believer. It needs awakened warriors who will stand when others fall. Think of where humanity stands right now, on the precipice of unprecedented darkness. If the chosen ones remain silent, who will speak? If the light-bearers stay hidden, who will illuminate the path? If you don't rise now, then when? The clock is ticking. The final grains of sand are falling through heaven's hourglass. What will you say when you stand before God and He asks what you did with the calling He placed on your life? Will you have excuses or evidence? Right now, in this sacred moment, make your declaration. Comment, "I answer the final call" below, as a public profession of your commitment. This isn't just typing words, it's a covenant with heaven, a spiritual line drawn in the sand that says, "I will not be among the 99% who miss their divine appointment." Tag someone you love, share this message. Become the divine interruption in someone else's spiritual slumber. Would you let your spouse, your children, your dearest friend miss heaven's final call? Of course not. Your sharing could be the very thing that awakens them to their purpose. Now, prepare your heart as we enter into the final prophetic prayer for activation. Don't just listen, participate. Let every word penetrate your spirit. This isn't a casual moment. This is sacred consecration. The question is no longer, will God use you? The question now is, will you let him? The fire has been prepared. The altar is ready. Heaven is waiting for your answer. This is your moment. This is your time. This is your final call. Stand now, or be swept away with the 99% who chose comfort over calling, safety over significance, the known over the divine adventure that awaits those who dare to say, "Yes, Lord, send me, beloved, chosen one." As we come to the close of this sacred moment together, I want you to remember these eternal truths that heaven has placed before you today. You were never forgotten. Every tear, every trial, every moment of waiting was divinely orchestrated preparation. The pain wasn't punishment, it was the forging of a vessel strong enough to carry God's glory in these final hours. Your calling isn't random or imagined. It was written in heaven's scrolls before you drew your first breath. Jeremiah 29:11 reminds us, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." And most importantly, the time for hesitation is over. The divine window is open now, but it won't remain so forever. This is your appointed hour to step through, to claim your purpose, to rise as the light-bearer God created you to be. I want you to know with absolute certainty that you are not walking this path alone. The God who parted the Red Sea, who brought down the walls of Jericho, who raised Christ from the dead, that same God stands with you now. His hand is on your shoulder, His Spirit is within your heart, His angels surround you. And beyond the heavenly realm, there's a community of fellow chosen ones right here, brothers and sisters, who understand your journey because they're walking it too. We stand together, a divine remnant in these final days, supporting one another through prayer and presence.